Alrighty, let's talk about callbacks. All right, so all a callback is basically you're setting a function into another function. So if you pass a function into another function, so the function calls it, that's a callback. Got it? Okay, perfect. We just end the lecture right here, or not. All right, let's actually use an example so we understand what a callback is, because you're going to be using callbacks a lot in JavaScript or in programming in general. All right, I've got some numbers in an array on line 1. Let numbers equal, and I've got some numbers. Okay, some are odd, some are even. I made a function to tell me whether or not a given number is odd. So it takes a number in as a parameter, and we'll say, okay, cool. If the number, okay, modulo 2, remember this checks the remainder. Okay, so basically if I divide 2 into this number and I get something other than 0, the number is odd, right? So any even number divided by 2 should be 0. If that isn't true, then it's odd, okay, because it's one of the two. So cool. This function will take in a number and tell me whether or not the number is odd. Okay, it's Boolean, true or false. Okay, cool. So I'm going to make a function to filter an array of numbers and get rid of all of the odd numbers. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a variable to hold my array. Let result equal blank array. I'm going to put my numbers in here as I go along. I'm going to iterate or do a for loop through my numbers. So I'm using the of keyword here. So that means I'm going to go to each number one by one in this array. So this number variable will hold the number as I loop through. Okay, and so I'm doing if function number. Okay, if this function returns true, so I'm going to make it more explicit. Okay, same thing, but I'll make it more explicit. I will take that number and put it into this array. Okay, so and then return the result. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, wait, Jonathan, what the heck is this? Is this fn? Okay, like what is this even talking about? Like you're doing a function and you don't even know what this function is. Well, that's because I'm passing a function into another function. So let's look at line 21. I'm going to call filter, the filter function on line 8. I'm going to pass in two arguments. The first argument is going to be the numbers array I made on line 1. This is my function from line 3. I am taking my function here and passing it into the filter function. Okay, so far with functions, we've just been like passing in strings and arrays and numbers. You can pass in a function too. Okay, the purpose is I would like to take that filter, use this function on all the numbers in it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run this and put console.log result. All right, that way we can see what happens with it. All right, I'm going to make this bigger. All right, and let's go ahead and, where is it? CD unit 5, day 2. Already node callback.js. Alrighty, so it gave me only the odd numbers. Alright, so here's what happened. I loop through the array. For each number in the array, I call the function that was passed in. This function is odd is the same as this variable. This variable holds the function. So I call the function with number. If it's odd, it returns true. Okay, if it's odd, it will return true. And then I put that number into the array. Okay, and then I loop through each number. So if it's odd, it will end up in this result array. If it's even, it won't. So I filter out all the even numbers. There's no 2, there's no 4, there's no 6. Here is why this is important. What if I made another function? Function is even. Okay, it's going to be very similar to the is odd function. Return number modulo 2 equals 0. Okay, these are opposites. Okay, if a number is divisible by 2, it's even. So there we go. So here I can change this up. Now instead of doing whether or not the number is odd, I can filter if the number is even. Okay, even, not event. All right, now here's the thing. Notice how there's no parentheses here. Okay, no parentheses. I'm just doing the name of the function. I'm taking this is even function and passing it in to filter, and now it will be this variable. So now if I run my programs, let me make sure I save. The result is different. Now I only get even numbers. Did I do anything to the filter function? I didn't change a single thing in here. Everything remained the same. So I can use the same function, filter, but pass in a different callback. Okay? And then when I run it, let's see, numbers, excuse me. See, I make typos too. Okay, so now the filter function can filter for even numbers, it can filter for odd numbers, it can filter for numbers above 50. I can pass in whatever function I want, and filter will call the function. Okay, these are callbacks. Right? Try this out for a little bit and try like moving it back and forth and playing with it a little bit so you understand. But this is essentially what callbacks are. Is you have a function that takes a function as a parameter and calls that function. Filter, the function filter is called a high order function. Okay, that means it's up the food chain, right? And so we rely on filter to call these other functions. Okay, the filter is a caller. That's what we call it. It's a caller of is it even or is odd. This is very, very useful code. Okay, it's very flexible. Okay, I can filter by whatever. In fact, you've been using callback functions with our fancy stuff this whole entire time. So for example, when we use find, right? So let's use numbers.find. Remember how you guys have been putting in like that arrow function? That's a callback. So I do arrow with x, x is greater than 3. Okay, this what find does is it finds the first thing that matches a certain parameter and returns it. So I'm going to console log it. So it's going to go through the array and give me the first element it finds that's greater than 3, which in this case should be 4. Okay, so 1 is not greater than 3, 2 is not greater than 3, 4 is greater than 3. So let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to go ahead and comment these two out so that way you don't have to see them. 4. Okay, so what find does is find takes this function, okay, and uses every single element in this array as an input to this function. Okay, this is a callback. It's if you didn't get that on the first try, it's okay, right? Like you're gonna eventually get it. But the idea of putting a function into another function is something you've already been doing, right? Now you have more of an understanding of like what is actually happening. So remember, the high order function, okay, is the function that takes a function as a parameter. In our example, filter is a function. It takes an array and a function. So we can pass in the function that we made. No parentheses. Okay, none of this. Okay, this is not going to work. You need to have just the name of the function. Fn, this variable here, is the variable we have for a function. Again, it's just a variable. You can call it zebra if you felt like it. Okay? I'm going to call this zebra. Right, that's fine. It just would not be good as far as naming things, but like as far as functionality is concerned, it doesn't matter. So I have my numbers, have my function. I can use my function and pass stuff into it, and I can mix and match the function. So I can call filter with is even, or I can call filter with is odd, or whatever function I so desire. I even could just use an anonymous function. Just like this. Isn't that crazy? So like x is equal to, I don't know, 6. Like it's just going to go ahead and find 6. Okay? You can do whatever you want. Okay? Or, I don't know, greater than 5. Okay, so I'm going to filter this out. So you can even do an anonymous function. Like you don't even have to like pre-build the function. You can just like straight up like pass one in. See? So this is pretty cool. Callbacks are an important part of JavaScript, so please go over this code as many times as it takes so you can get this idea, because it's very, very important.